Welcome to Cross Platform Podcast, where we discuss how to solve productivity problems across platforms. I'm Augusto Pinaud,
And I'm Art Gelwicks.
and today we are going to, or we call this show the announcement. Ooh,
It's announcement season.
that's what I was trying to find the
Yeah,
word.
it's you
Announcement
get you
season.
get holiday season. Well, now we're in the thick
Now
of
it's
announcement
announcement
season.
season.
Yeah,
Well,
every
and
all the big ones.
it is hardware and software. This is the
Mhm.
software heavy software season where Google I/O, Apple developers, Microsoft build, and the fall, October, November tend to be more the hardware season. But we will start seeing the back to school pretty soon. I mean, I know school is ending in the next 3 weeks. For some people, finish today, some people finish in the next 3 weeks, and then back to school is seems like it's immediately after that. But what we are seeing, it's a lot of things and a lot of ideas and a lot of concepts that are coming in the next month that are going to shape the future of your cross-platform implementation.
Yeah, that's the thing with announcement season, and it's the reason why I wanted us to make this our topic this week. Is because this is the software equivalent of shiny object syndrome
Mhm.
time of year. Because we have all of these announcements of coming technologies and coming functionality, and it impacts directly on your decision making as to what you're going to continue using and what you might start using in the future when it comes to different tools for your platform. Microsoft Build, for example, was this week, and they listed a plethora of different sets of functionality and updates to their applications, which, if you're a Microsoft user, that's great. You're motivated, you're energized to say, hey, I want this stuff in hand. If you're not, you may be looking at their offering and saying, should I think about moving to that platform? Same thing with Google I/O, same thing with WWDC that's coming up. So, what I wanted to kick back and forth with you is this the type of thing where, like we have around the holidays when hardware starts to roll out, or just the period before the holidays, how do you handle and recommend to people, how do you recommend they handle shiny object syndrome?
You're asking to the worst person, at least now. Okay? 20 years ago, I will be, the first one, and I will, be on what are you throw a piece of software that excites me. And my next question was, what are the requirements? Do I need to upgrade my machine? Okay, it was that was the order of ideas for me. Today, I still play with a lot of software, but I implement little of it. So I don't know. My system, it's pretty robust as it is. And I don't try to play, to modify, to add variables to this, to add wrenches. You know, I wanted the thing to work. I wanted to turn on the machine and be able to run immediately. And actually, that's part of the reason I have multiple machines. So I can play in certain machines. So if the machine messed up, I don't care. I will rebuild it, delete all, and start again. And I don't, because of that, I'm very cautious with new software. Okay, how this can, and my first question used to be, is the software going to be able to run it? And now is how this is going to mess up my current system. And I play a lot more defensive that what I probably played 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I was on the offensive. When I wrote 25 tips for productivity, I remember there is a chapter in there that says, do not use software that do not have backup. Guess how that was written? Okay, I move everything and the thing crashed, and that was when I say, oh, there was no backup, and I lost whatever I lost. Now my first question is, where is the backup, and how is the backup of that backup? That's my first strategy before I start moving content from anywhere.
Yeah,
So
that's from a large scale perspective. I agree completely. Um, My struggle is a little bit more on the small scale perspective when we look at feature announcements. And maybe it's not just announcement season, but any announcements related to part of your platform that you either use or you've considered using.
Mhm.
uh, how does that work into play? For example, I put a requirement on any new functionality. I immediately ask myself, how might I use that feature? Where does it fit into what I normally do? And if I can't immediately give myself an answer and say, hey, I could use it for this, I could use it for that, then to me it gets pushed down to level 2. It's a nice thing to investigate. It may have an earth-shaking platform, revelation level functionality that I could put to use, but there's nothing obvious. And if there's nothing obvious, then it's going to take some dedicated time to evaluate and prioritize. So I have to tier that over. Um, but I'm constantly looking at these announcements saying, does it make sense? Where I struggle with the announcements are when there's a function that is powerful enough or compelling enough to be one of those A-list functions, but it's in a program I don't use.
Mhm.
Now that starts that whole question process of, well, if that function is so useful and it's so beneficial, should I be using that other tool?
Right.
And that's where I think a lot of people can get into the quagmire of, I don't know, maybe I should change, maybe I should move everything. And I immediately say, whoa, pump the brakes, pump the brakes. It
Pump
may
the
be
brakes.
really nice functionality. One, you want to give it a time, you give it time because it's an announcement. Most of the time, it's not actually released yet. Two, give people some time to play with it or play with it yourself in a testing type of environment. And three, visualize how you would be putting that functionality to use. And would it be as game changing as you think it would be?
Right. And you make a very good point, and that's where my devices now are the device to play. Do I install the Apple iPad beta? Yes, but it's not on my main machine. I have a third machine. There's not. I have my main machine is an iPad Pro, an M1, and I have an iPad Mini that it's very comparable, okay, to main machine. And those two, those are not plays. They are for work. When I grab that thing, I need to run, not to play. But I have another old iPad that is where I install beta, I install software, I install junk, I test play with things. Why? Because if anything fail, I can delete that thing and start again, and nothing happened. And that's maybe what changed. I wasn't necessarily aware or was not busy enough. I don't know. We can argue one way or the other on the cost of need to rebuild my machine
Yeah, that
because
is a tough
that.
one. If you have to start from scratch, there is a significant cost that has to be factored in. And we don't factor it's a parallel discussion here, but let's say, for example, the announcement includes a new laptop that's really nice and you think functionally and it's time to upgrade. Well, you have to figure into that upgrade the cost to rebuild, the cost to migrate your applications over, the downtime involved. I did one yesterday for a client. And not only is there an effort involved in actually setting up that device, but you have things like licensing transfers. You have updates that have to happen. It takes a few
Big
hours.
time.
Do you have time to dedicate to that if it's not absolutely essential? Well, in many cases, the upgrade is warranted, but you have to work that into your process, and you have to recognize that for the day that I'm going to be going through and setting up my machine so it's exactly the way I want it to be, what am I going to do with the work that I want to do that day? Is that what I consider a down day? Is that an administrative day? Uh, that machine probably will be sitting there idle during periods of time while it's doing its updates. Can I be doing something else? Are there analog things I could even be doing? Taking that cost into consideration can make or break the decision making process.
Right. And but what is interesting is not only that, as you said, it's announcement. There was iOS 15.5 was released in less than 30 days. Okay, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. Okay, and there were features that they were promised on the developer conference in 2021 that
Mhm.
finally arrived to this. So if you move platforms and everything because of that feature, and so let's say you move because of some of those features, and now finally you're getting there. Even I remember they offer driver license are going to be on your phone. I'm still waiting for my driver
Mhm.
license to be here. Okay, and so that is the other part. And the third thing to consider is in many of these cases, especially when they're not progressive upgrades, it's new code, it's new software, it's going to have bugs. You know what you're going to do when, again, productivity fails, and that is the thing. I It's not that I don't play, okay? It's that I'm lucky that I have different resources to play. 20 years ago, I did not have multiple machines, okay? Machines were way more expensive also at that time, okay? Now I can buy a machine that is for play, that I can play, and doesn't matter. I have that iPad that I can grab and play, and nothing will be messed up. And then I can now afford that my productivity machine works every time, and every time I think in here. And even when we play, and I will curious to hear your opinion on this, or your how that has changed for you. I now play a lot more in paper than what I play in actually moving the stuff. It used to be, oh, well, let's rearrange the office. I will take all the gear out, move the desk, and do all this. Now I spend a lot more time thinking before I move. And I think the same thing happened with the hardware.
No, I agree completely. This is the type of thing where planning and putting effort into working through your cycles and determining when something needs to happen, when it doesn't need to happen, is critical.
Yep.
When people ask me about these types of announcements, they'll say, "Hey, did you see this announcement? Did you see this release?" I'll always ask them a question: is it a feature or is it the future? And if it's the future,
Ooh,
if
I
it's
like
something that's not actually in their hands, don't build your system on it. It's a nice thing. It'd be really cool to have. It'd be really cool to have jetpacks. We don't have those either. So,
You see, if I will have that will have been the title for this episode. Is it a feature or a future? That's the title for next year.
well, and that's where we need to think about these things. Is it's a good way to apply some rational thought. Now, that being said, one of the things I do encourage people though is if you see a feature that is in the future, look at your existing system and say, can I do something similar to that now? Is there a way to emulate that? And if you can do that, then you don't have to worry about waiting for that particular thing.
And it's fine to do that too. Okay, I did that when the iPad came out. Was the iPad capable as the iPad is today? No. Okay, but I understood that the iPad had enough potential based on my current gear at that time to invest on it, even with the sacrifices. Okay, for me, among other things, on that first iPad, okay, it was carrying a lot less weight, having a better battery life, having the keyboard, having a lot of things. Was the iPad what is now? No, but the future, okay, the features that it had when it was launched and the future possibilities was enough for me to take the risk when that first iPad came out. Okay, in 2012 was not the first one, was the second one really, but when it was, because it was 2012. When 2012 the second iPad came with a camera, okay, I understood that was for me the future. I didn't need to carry a PC anymore. Okay. And I replaced my two PCs, my scanner. Okay. I could do everything on the iPad. I remember, at the beginning, now people is more familiar with these ideas, but I remember I had a document to scan and sign, and I put my iPad, scan, sign it, and okay, paste the picture or the signature, because at that time you didn't have pencil, so paste the signature and email it back while on the meeting. And suddenly the guy said, "How you did that? You were in the middle discussing themselves. What you did that? Just did it in front of you." I was like, "No, no, 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 no. But you need to scan it in a scanner." And I say, "Hold on. You have a PDF file with my signature. What else do you need?" But you don't have a scanner. And it's true.
Yeah.
I did not have a scanner anymore because I used to carry what it was called. It was a scanner. It
Oh,
was like
one of the portable bar scanners. Yeah, I
the
remember
portable
those.
bar scanner. I don't
Yeah,
remember what they were
back
called
in the day.
back in the day. But again, that was the thing. Okay. When I look all the potential gear
Mhm.
that I could remove having an iPad,
Yeah.
okay, for me, the future was entitled enough for go and take the risk. And it's been worth it every step of the way. Perfect? No, but worth it. But I like that question. It's a feature or a future. When last year Apple announced the M1, I got the M1 not because I thought they were going to do anything hardware wise right there. Yeah, no, they did exactly what I expect they were doing. But what I think future is Apple is going to get the capabilities of a MacBook and the capabilities of the iPad closer and closer and closer. So the future, one, I wasn't risking the present. Two, the future was worth it to upgrade the machine and play with it. But important to say, the present, okay, was not affected in last year upgrade by the future. Okay, because I was going to run exactly the same thing I was able to run on my iPad Pro prior to that one.
A
What
perfect example of it. Samsung and Google finally got their ducks in a row and have released Google Assistant on the Galaxy Watch 4 and
right?
for Wear OS. That was a promised feature for a long time, and there's been a lot of demand around it. But you really couldn't build it into your work process because it didn't exist.
Wasn't there?
The closest thing you had was Bixby, which was not an equitable solution. But now you can use it. So the question is it a game changer? Is that type of functionality going to change your operation and your process and your platforms? And that's where I think if your answer is that it's the future rather than a feature, what you've just done is you've bought yourself time. You've bought yourself time to evaluate it. You've bought yourself time to watch others evaluate it and determine, is it something that you truly need to integrate into your systems?
Or
And I
not?
think it helps with the technology adoption curve. When you look at the adoption curve, early adopters, we qualify as that, jump on things right away. Bleeding edge type of people grab something. They're in beta versions. I'm in beta versions of a bunch of things. They're neat features, but they're not polished. They're not ready to go. And I wouldn't recommend them to everybody who's in the middle of the curve. The middle of the curve people, they're the ones that just want it to work. They want the feature. They want the feature to do what it's supposed to do. And they want to move on to the next thing that they need to accomplish. So with announcement season, I say take it with a grain of salt. Look at all the cool stuff. Look at all the cool functionality. And then look at your process and look at your procedures and look at your platform and decide where does that fit. And if it doesn't, that's okay. You're still on mute.
The only thing I will add to what you said is be aware that you are buying a future.
Very true. I would agree with you completely. If you are committing to a future function and you are going to make that part of your system, be aware also that it may not come to fruition. We have seen so many things that have been promised and then they're either watered down or not delivered at all. And that can derail your plans.
Yep. So with this, we get to the end of the show. Follow us like when you like to follow us where you like to listen to podcasts, like us and subscribe to us and leave us a review. You can also interact with us in personalproductivity.club. We're Augusto Pinaud and Art Gelwicks. See you next time on your favorite device.